My name is Serafina Vance. For as long as I can remember, my life has been defined by the scent of saltwater and sawdust, the twin perfumes of my family's legacy in Seattle. The Vances have been building boats on the shores of the Puget Sound for 3 generations. My grandfather, a man with calloused hands and a kind heart, could shape wood like a sculptor, his love for the sea woven into every vessel he made. My father, Arthur Vance, inherited the company, Vance Maritime, and transformed it from a respected local boatyard into a titan of the luxury yacht industry. He was a man of steel and ambition, his world one of balance sheets and market share, a place where sentimentality was a liability. My mother, Althea, was the opposite. She was an artist who painted seascapes, her canvases filled with the soft, misty light of the Pacific Northwest. She saw the world not in sharp lines, but in gentle, overlapping hues. From my grandfather, I inherited a love for engineering, for the elegant logic of how things work. From my mother, I inherited a love for the why, the quiet beauty, the deeper current. She passed away when I was 16, leaving a silence in our grand house that my father filled with more work, more ambition, more distance. The rift between my father and me wasn't a single, cataclysmic event, but a slow drifting apart, like 2 boats on opposing tides. The final break came 8 years ago, on a gray Tuesday morning in my father's cavernous office. The room, paneled in dark mahogany, always felt like the belly of a whale, a place where light struggled to enter. I was 22, fresh out of college with a degree in sustainable engineering, my mind alight with possibilities. I had spent months drafting a proposal, a vision for the future of Vance Maritime. "The world is changing, Dad," I'd said, my voice trembling slightly as I unrolled blueprints across his polished desk. "Diesel is the past. The future is clean, silent propulsion. I've designed a new system, a hybrid electric engine that's more efficient, quieter, and has almost 0 emissions. We could lead the industry, not just follow it." He glanced at my schematics for a moment, his expression unreadable. My older brother, Leo, stood by his shoulder, his arms crossed. Leo had always been the pragmatist, the one who followed the path laid out for him. My father finally looked up, not at the plans, but at me. His eyes, the same shade of stormy gray as the sound outside, held a familiar disappointment. "Serafina," he said, his voice laced with a weary sort of patience, "this is a hobby. A lovely, idealistic one, but a hobby nonetheless. We build engines that work, that our clients trust. We don't have time for experiments. Leo is heading the new acquisitions department. There's a place for you there, learning the real business." Leo added, his tone more cutting, "People who buy a Vance yacht want power, Serafina, not a science project." They saw my passion as a flaw, my vision as a childish fantasy. In that moment, I understood. They didn't want my ideas, they wanted my compliance. They wanted another Vance to fall in line, to protect the legacy as it was, not as it could be. My mother's words, a soft whisper from memory, echoed in my mind. "Let the current guide you, Serafina, even if it pulls you away from the shore." I rolled up my blueprints, the crisp paper crinkling in the quiet room. "I can't do that," I said softly. I left his office, left the sprawling Vance estate, and walked away from the only life I had ever known. I took my mother's maiden name, Ethelgard, and disappeared into the anonymous hum of the city. They never called to ask where I went. That was 8 years ago. 8 years of silence. Which is why the message that lit up my phone this afternoon felt like a ghost's touch, cold and unnerving. It was from Leo. "Dad's 65th is tonight at the Cascade Club. Don't even think about showing up. You'll just upset him and make a scene." A moment later, another text arrived. This time from my stepmother, Helen, a woman my father had married 2 years after my mother's death, whose life was a carefully curated exhibition of social grace and material wealth. "Leo is right, dear. Tonight is very important for your father's new partnership talks. Please, let's not have any distractions." I leaned back in my chair, the phone resting in my palm. My office, the headquarters of Ethelgard Technologies, was the antithesis of my father's. It was a loft in Pioneer Square, with exposed brick walls, vast windows, and a clear view of Elliott Bay. The air was filled not with the scent of old wood and polish, but with the faint, clean smell of ozone from our testing lab and the aroma of coffee from the communal kitchen. Light streamed in, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air and glinting off a simple, framed magazine cover on the wall. Seattle Business Monthly, The Ethelgard Drive, How One Woman's Vision is Silently Revolutionizing the Marine Industry. The woman on the cover, her hair pulled back, a faint smile on her face, was me. Serafina Ethelgard. The irony was a slow, deep ache in my chest. The hobby my father had dismissed was now the core of a company valued at over $5 billion. The science project Leo had mocked was the most sought-after clean propulsion technology on the planet. And Vance Maritime, clinging to its gas-guzzling traditions while the world moved on, was quietly, steadily sinking. I knew, from industry reports, that they were hemorrhaging money, their order books thinning, their reputation fading from classic to outdated. My desk phone buzzed, and I picked it up. "Serafina," said the warm, steady voice of Ben Carter, my COO and my first-ever employee. "Just got off the line with Eleanor Sterling's office. She's confirmed for 8 p.m. She's looking forward to meeting you in person. You still sure about this? We could just announce the acquisition in a press release tomorrow." I looked at the thick, cream-colored invitation on my desk. The Cascade Club's crest was embossed in gold at the top, celebrating Arthur Vance, a legacy of excellence. "I'm sure, Ben," I said, my voice clearer than I expected. "Some things need to be done in person." "All right then," he said, a smile in his voice. "By the way, Sterling's assistant mentioned something interesting. Apparently, Arthur Vance has been trying to get a meeting with the CEO of Ethelgard for the past 6 months. He just doesn't know the CEO is you." Of course he had. He was a proud man, but he wasn't a fool. He knew his company needed a lifeline. He just never imagined the hand reaching out to save him would be his own daughter's. Tonight wasn't about revenge. I had learned, in the quiet years of building my dream, that revenge is a hollow vessel. It holds nothing and sails nowhere. This was about something else. It was about closing a circle, about honoring the part of me that came from my mother, the part that believed in charting my own course. It was about finally, quietly, claiming my own story. I went home to my small apartment overlooking the water. I chose a dress not of black, but of a deep sea green, the color of the Sound on a winter's day. It was simple, elegant, and bore no designer's name. Around my neck, I clasped the one piece of my past I had carried with me, a small, silver locket from my mother. It didn't hold a photograph. Instead, inside was a tiny, impossibly detailed painting she had made for me, a single, perfect wave, crested with white. "It's a reminder," she had told me, her voice soft as she fastened it around my neck years ago, "that the most powerful forces are often the quietest, and that you carry the entire ocean inside you." As the car drove me towards the Cascade Club, a fine mist began to fall, blurring the city lights into soft focus constellations. The club, perched on a bluff overlooking the Sound, was a beacon of warmth and light against the darkening sky. Inside, the ballroom was a symphony of success. Crystal chandeliers dripped light onto a sea of tuxedos and silk gowns. The air hummed with polite laughter and the clinking of glasses. A large banner, in elegant script, hung above the orchestra. "Happy 65th birthday, Arthur Vance." At the check-in table, a woman with a sleek blonde bob and a clipboard looked up. It was Sarah, Leo's wife. Her smile was a perfect, practiced curve until she saw me. It faltered, then vanished. "Serafina," she breathed, her eyes wide with a kind of horrified disbelief. You can't be here." Leo was very clear. I offered a small, calm smile. The Serafina of 8 years ago would have bristled, her hurt turning to anger. The woman I was now simply stood her ground. "Good evening, Sarah. I believe my name is on the guest list." Eleanor Sterling's office arranged it. Her perfectly manicured fingers, trembling slightly, flew across the screen of her tablet. Her eyes widened again, this time in confusion. You're here as a guest of Sterling Ventures? But how do you know Eleanor Sterling?" "We have business together," I said gently, and before she could form another question, I stepped past her and into the ballroom. It was like stepping into a memory. The same faces, older now, with finer lines etched around their eyes, but with the same guarded expressions. The same scent of expensive perfume and quiet desperation. It was the world I had fought so hard to escape, and I was surprised to find that it no longer had any power over me. It was just a room, filled with people. I saw them across the floor. Helen, resplendent in a diamond necklace, holding court by the towering floral arrangement. My half-sister, Chloe, who was only a teenager when I left, now looking uncomfortable and out of her depth in a dress that was too old for her. And Leo, his shoulders tight, his face etched with a stress that went beyond tonight's party. He was trying to keep the ship from sinking, and the strain was showing. He saw me a moment later. The blood drained from his face, replaced by a flush of anger. He strode towards me, his steps quick and purposeful. "I told you not to come," he hissed, his voice low and furious. "What are you trying to do? Humiliate him on his birthday?" "Hello, Leo," I said, my voice even. "I'm not here to cause a scene." "Security will be here in 1 minute," he said through clenched teeth. "Leave now, Serafina. For once, don't make this about you." The old wound, the one that whispered you are not wanted, throbbed for a second. But then I looked at my brother, and for the first time, I saw not just an adversary, but a man drowning in responsibility. "I don't think you'll want to do that," I said softly. "Eleanor Sterling is arriving any moment. She invited me personally. We have an announcement to make that concerns Vance Maritime." His face contorted in confusion. "Sterling? What business could she possibly have with you?" As if on cue, a subtle shift occurred in the room's atmosphere. The hum of conversation quieted. Heads turned toward the entrance. A palpable wave of deference and anticipation rolled through the crowd. Eleanor Sterling had arrived. She was a woman in her late 60s, with a sweep of silver hair and eyes that missed nothing. She didn't command attention with volume, she commanded it with presence. Her firm, Sterling Ventures, was the most respected private equity group on the West Coast, known for its shrewd investments in disruptive technologies. My father, his face alight with a desperate hope, moved to intercept her, his hand outstretched. "Eleanor, so glad you could make it. We have that private room ready to discuss the proposal." But Eleanor's gaze was already sweeping the room, a brief, polite smile on her lips. Her eyes found me, and the smile warmed, becoming genuine. She bypassed my father as if he were merely a part of the scenery and walked directly to me. The room fell utterly silent. "Miss Ethelgard," she said, her voice clear and warm as she extended her hand. "It's a pleasure to finally meet you in person." She then glanced at my stunned father and brother, a flicker of amusement in her eyes. "Or perhaps, tonight, I should call you Miss Vance." You could have heard a pin drop on the thick carpet. I saw Helen's perfectly painted smile freeze and crack. I saw Leo look as if he'd been struck. And my father, he turned a shade of pale I had never seen before, a ghostly white that seemed to drain all the strength from his formidable frame. I don't understand," my father stammered, his voice a hoarse whisper. He looked from me to Eleanor, his world tilting on its axis. "You know my daughter?" Eleanor's smile was kind, but her words were direct. "Know her, Arthur? Miss Vance is one of the most brilliant minds in her field. A true visionary." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle in the silent room. "Though, judging by the looks on everyone's faces, I take it you weren't all aware that Serafina Ethelgard and Serafina Vance are the same person." The silence was broken by the sharp, metallic clatter of a champagne flute slipping from Helen's fingers and hitting the marble floor. No one moved to pick it up. "That's impossible," Leo said, taking a step forward. His voice was unsteady. "She left. She's done nothing." The word, nothing, hung in the air. 8 years of sleeping on couches, of pouring my life savings into a prototype, of working 18-hour days in a rented garage, of fighting for funding, of building a team and a dream from scratch, all of it dismissed in a single word. But it no longer stung. It was simply a measure of the chasm between their reality and mine. I've been building Ethelgard Technologies, I said, my voice quiet but carrying in the stillness. That nothing, Leo, is now the company that holds the patents to the Ethelgard drive. My father swayed slightly, gripping the back of a nearby chair for support. Ethelgard, the silent propulsion system? The one every shipyard in Europe is trying to license. The very same, I confirmed, meeting his shocked gaze. The technology that could save Vance Maritime. Eleanor Sterling gave a discreet cough, bringing the focus back to the present. Which brings us to our announcement, she said smoothly. Wait, my father held up a hand, his eyes still locked on me. What announcement? I took a breath, feeling the solid weight of the locket against my skin. Sterling Ventures is providing the capital for Ethelgard Technologies to make a significant acquisition, I stated, my voice steady. Tonight, we are acquiring a controlling 60% stake in Vance Maritime. A wave of gasps and frantic whispers rippled through the ballroom. The carefully constructed facade of the evening had crumbled into dust. You can't, Leo choked out, his face a mask of outrage. This is our family's company. Actually, we can, Eleanor interjected, her tone gentle but firm. Vance Maritime is a publicly traded company, and your Q3 reports were concerning. This isn't a hostile takeover, Leo. This is a rescue. Miss Vance's technology is the future. She could have sold to anyone. She insisted on giving her family's company the first right of refusal. Consider it a courtesy. Helen, recovering her composure, stepped forward. Arthur, you can't let her do this. She knows nothing about running this business. She'll destroy everything you've built. A soft, sad laugh escaped my lips. Everything you've built? I repeated, my gaze sweeping over them. You mean the company clinging to an outdated legacy? The company that has lost nearly half its market share in 5 years because it refused to innovate? The company that is 2, maybe 3, bad quarters away from insolvency. My father's proud posture finally broke. The titan of industry vanished, replaced by a tired, older man. In his eyes, I saw the flicker of 8 years of unspoken words, of questions unasked and answers unheard. Serafina, we can talk about this. Privately. You want to talk now? I asked, my voice devoid of accusation, filled only with a quiet sadness. 8 years ago, I came to you, begging you to listen. You told me to learn the real business. Leo called my designs a science project. Helen told everyone I was irresponsible for walking away. I stood a little taller, feeling the strength that came not from victory, but from truth. I didn't walk away from my responsibilities. I walked toward them. I built something that matters. And now I'm here to save the legacy you never thought I was worthy of. James pulled a leather-bound folder from his briefcase and placed it on a nearby table. The documents are ready, Arthur. I will assume the role of CEO, I continued, my plan laid out with the same precision as one of my blueprints. We will begin retrofitting the shipyards immediately to integrate the Ethelgard drive. We will honor all current contracts and start pivoting our new designs to all-electric. Production begins in 6 months. My father looked at me, dazed, as if seeing a stranger. And if I say no? Then Sterling Ventures will partner with Ethelgard to build our own shipyard, I replied without hesitation. And we will offer our technology to your biggest competitors. They will be very, very happy to take it. And Vance Maritime will be a memory within a year. Dad, don't listen to her, Leo pleaded, grabbing his arm. Quiet, Leo. The command was sharp, edged with a pain so deep it silenced the entire room. My father had never spoken to Leo like that. He turned to me, and for the first time, he truly looked at me. He saw not the disappointing daughter, not the rebellious child, but the woman standing before him. The technology, he said, his voice barely a whisper. It's really yours? I nodded, pulling out my phone. I didn't have to tap into a system. The schematics, the patent filings, the fluid dynamics models, they were all a part of me. I simply met his gaze. While you were all so sure I was failing, I said softly, I was building the future you refused to see. He sank into a chair, his hands trembling as he stared at me. The weight of 8 lost years of his own blindness settled upon him. I could see it in the slump of his shoulders. We can talk about the past later, Dad, I said, my voice softening. It wasn't about blame anymore. Right now, this is about the future. I need to know. Are you ready to let your daughter save this family? Eleanor Sterling held out a pen. The room held its collective breath. With a hand that shook, my father took the pen and signed the contract. Behind him, Leo let out a strangled sound, then turned and walked away, not in a storm of fury, but with the quiet, shuffling gait of a defeated man. Helen stood frozen, her social mask shattered. Eleanor Sterling addressed the stunned crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in congratulating the new CEO of the newly formed Vance Ethelgard Industries, Miss Serafina Vance. A scattered, uncertain applause began. I didn't look at the crowd. I didn't look at Helen or my father. My fingers found the locket at my throat, its cool silver a familiar comfort. You carry the entire ocean inside you. My mother's faith had been the current that carried me through the long, lonely years, all the way to this moment. I had come full circle, not as the dutiful daughter they expected, but as the woman I was always meant to be. Later, as the party dissolved around us, the orchestra playing softly to a near-empty room, I stepped out onto the terrace. The rain had stopped. The air was crisp and clean, and the lights of the city glittered across the dark water. I wasn't celebrating. I was just breathing. I heard his footsteps behind me, slow and hesitant. The night you left, my father said, his voice quiet. He didn't come too close, respecting the space between us. You tried to show me your blueprints. I wouldn't even look at them. I told you they were impractical. I kept my eyes on the horizon. Yes, I said. You did. A long silence stretched between us, filled only by the distant sound of a fairy horn. I was wrong, he finally said. About everything. I was so focused on preserving the past, I couldn't see the future, even when it was standing right in front of me. I didn't just dismiss your idea, Serafina. I dismissed you. I finally turned to face him. The titan of industry was gone. In his place was my father, a man adrift, his pride stripped away, leaving only a raw and painful vulnerability. For the first time, I think he was seeing me clearly. Can you forgive me? He asked, his voice thick with unshed tears. I looked down, my thumb tracing the outline of the wave on my locket. Forgiveness felt like too simple a word for the complex tangle of pain and love and time that lay between us. It wasn't a debt to be canceled. It was a bridge to be built, plank by plank, over a vast canyon. I don't know if forgiveness is the right word, Dad, I said gently. It's not something I can just give you. It's something we might be able to build. But it starts with understanding. Are you ready to try and understand? He met my gaze, and in his tired, gray eyes, I saw the first glimmer of something new. Not pride, not authority, but a humble, aching sincerity. He nodded slowly. I want to try, he said. Teach me, Serafina. Teach me how to see. The next morning, I walked through the doors of Vance Maritime. The brass plate was still the same, but the air inside felt different, charged with a nervous, hopeful energy. In my new office, my father's old office, a single object sat in the center of the great mahogany desk. It was an old, dog-eared book, its leather cover softened with age. My grandfather's engineering manual, filled with his handwritten notes and sketches. I thought it had been lost years ago. On top of it was a note in my father's strong, familiar script. It's time the captain learned from the navigator. I smiled, a real, unburdened smile. I ran my hand over the worn cover. Perhaps the greatest journey isn't about proving anyone wrong, but about having the courage to prove yourself right. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, it brings you back to a familiar shore, not to reclaim what was lost, but to build something new together. The past was not erased, but its weight had lessened. The waters ahead were uncharted, but for the first time in a long time, I felt ready to navigate them, not alone, but with a tentative hand offered in peace, ready to learn the tides alongside me. The journey home had just begun.